Hi children. The British ruled India for about 200 years. They had come all the way from Europe to India, and stage by stage they strengthened their position in the Indian soil. They used different kinds of policies to subdue the Indian kings. To get strong on the soil, they used various measures. They subordinated the Indian rulers. They did not care for the welfare of India. They were busy looting India, plundering India, and making wealth for their country, the Britain. Though the people here in the beginning did not make it out very much, as days passed on, they realized that these foreigners are not doing any good for India. And in 1857, a very important year in the history of British India, Indians revolted against them. Indians revolted. The kings and the rulers here, they rose against the British rule. There was widespread resentment all over the country. The result was the first war of Indian independence in 1857. We call it as the first war of Indian independence, but the British pooh-poohed it. They said, no, it is not a war for independence, it was just a revolt by a few people, and we were able to put it down. Mainly speaking, two policies of the British had turned against them. One was the subsidiary alliance, the second one, the other one was the Doctrine of Flux. These two had done great damage to the British in the Indian soil, though they were able to build up their empire. They had gained, no doubt, but in the meanwhile, resentment against the British that rose. And as we discuss, we would like to get it compartmentalized into different areas like political reasons, economic reasons, administrative reasons, and military reasons. What were the various reasons that led to the first war of Indian independence? Or, in the words of the British, call it revolt, it's all right. We will go through all these reasons one by one. It is an important aspect of your study. First of all, we will take up the political reasons. See, no battle, no war, or no such struggle will erupt because of one single reason. There will be a multitude of reasons, and ultimately a spark is enough to kindle it. The revolt starts. We will see it in detail as we go through the first war of Indian independence. Political reasons, many Indian kings lost their kingdoms due to the Doctrine of Flux. What is Doctrine of Flux? Dalhousie was the Governor General who got Doctrine of Flux implemented in India. What does that mean? Kings and queens of India who do not have heirs, who do not have male successors, they lose their kingdom to the British. They will not be able to have a hold on their kingdom after the king dies or the queen dies. The kingdom should go to the British. See, what an illegal way of administration. The British cannot claim any authority on the Indian soil. They come all the way from Britain in the name of trade and commerce, and after coming here, they start subjugating the Indian kings and Indian rulers and seeing that they are in a position to expand their territory in India. This is totally an imperialistic attitude. Very important reason, many Indian kings lost their kingdoms due to the Doctrine of Flux. Jhansi Rani Lakshmi Bai too was harassed by the British. Many kings in the north, in the south, they lost their kingdoms because of the Doctrine of Lapse policy which was implemented by the British here. Usually, it had been natural that some of the kings did not have heirs at all. Quite a few kings. When they did not have heirs, they cannot adopt somebody and say, he will be my heir, he will be my successor. After my death, he will take over, he will rule. They cannot say, because an adopted son did not have the right to rule. So many Indian kings who lost their kingdoms due to this policy, they were angry at the British. They got totally disturbed. They were just permitted to have the palace or something. They can stay there, but they cannot rule. In case they had expressed their anger, they even lost their kingdoms. The battle used to be there, fight used to be there, and the British used to either kill them or drive them out of their territory, that kingdom, and take it over. We'll come to the next. See, some of the states here where Doctrine of Lapse got implemented and the Indian kings lost the kingdoms were Satara, it's in Maharashtra, Satara, Jaipur, Jhansi, Udaipur and many other states became part of the British Empire. Dalhousie abolished the kingships of Tanjavur and Carnatic Nawabs. Whoever rose against the British, whoever tried to argue with the British on these aspects, they lost their kingdoms altogether. The British dethroned Mughal kings. Mughal kings who had hitherto, at least in namesake, they ruled, they lost their thrones. Many Indian soldiers became unemployed. They lost their kingdoms totally. Indian soldiers, they became unemployed. When the king lost the kingdom, the entire army got disbanded. Army got disbanded. The soldiers did not have any job. The regular salary what they were getting, they would not get there afterwards. They ceased to be soldiers now. So lots of soldiers who had undergone training in warfare, they lost their jobs. They became desperate. Now let us come to the administrative reasons. These were military reasons. Administrative, political reasons. Now we have administrative reasons. The British brought in many civil and criminal laws into effect. British brought, as a part of administration, they brought a number of civil rules and criminal rules. But the viewpoint was not to help the Indians, not to set things right here. It was to enable the British have a stranglehold on their administration. They were unkind to Indians in the implementation of laws. When it came to the implementation of laws, they were partial. It did not benefit the Indians. So imbalance was there in administering judgment. The Indian kings, the Indian nobles, soldiers, easily they identified this sort of partial attitude that the British had. Laws were applied to Indians in different manners. Laws were the same set of laws, rules, but they were administered to the British from a different angle. When they had to be administered, sanctioned against the Indians, it had a different tone. English became the language of the court. Most of the Indians did not know English, but in the court, the judges, the advocates, everyone used English as the medium of the court. So the ordinary persons, the Indians, were not able to know what discussions were going on in the court. It was easy for the British to cheat the Indians. Court judgments were in favor of the British. Ultimately, almost all the judgments used to favor the British. People did not like the new laws. So Indians, they started hating the way judgments were being given in the British courts. Coming to economic reasons, know the background now. There was industrialization in Britain and Europe. So small scale industries were perishing and huge mills, factories, they were taking their position. Thousands of workers, they come together in one place, they stay there. Even night times they used to stay in the factory itself. The rules did not favor the labor. The capitalists were managing, and the capitalists who had put up these industries, they were after making money. They wanted to make wealth. They wanted to become more powerful. These industries, which had come up in Europe and Britain, they needed raw material. The cloth mills needed cotton. So cotton was being exported from India to Britain, and there fine mill cloths used to get produced, and they would be sent back to India for sale or to other parts of the world too. Indigo, the coloring agent what they required for the clothes. The jute, jute was a very important material, a product that they required. Mining here. So all these led to the raw materials getting exported out of India to Britain. The British were importing. Very little tax then. But when the finished products came to India, heavy taxes were being imposed on them. Customs duty, heavy taxes. Again, those taxes will go to the British pockets. It will add up to their treasury. Due to industrialization in England, the Indian handicraft suffered a lot. India, it had got its internal structure beautified, artifacted very well, because India was dependent on handicrafts. Each and every village was almost self-sufficient. They were getting things done on their own. Small scale industries, handicrafts, all these started suffering because raw material was not available now. Raw material was being purchased by the British to be sent to Britain. England became a workshop of industries. All the industries with all the technological input, they were coming up in Europe, they were coming up in Britain, and raw materials were getting exhausted out of India. They were being taken out and sent to Britain. So the handicraft industry in India, it started suffering a lot. India depended on these handicraft industries, small scale industries. So the base itself was getting disturbed. The entire Indian economy started plummeting. There was total indifference towards the Indians. Indians were being identified as a labor force to produce the raw material they required. When it came to their social benefits, they were not being given any position as such. The artisans, craftsmen, India had such beautiful, skilled craftsmen, and their life was in danger now. The artisans of India became unemployment. They got unemployed, no job. The wool and cotton weavers, they perished. They did not have a source of income at all. People were after the niceties, the nice items that arrived from the British industries. The mill clothes were far superior to the Indian weaved cloths. It's always the case. The machines will be able to give a better output. The Indian handicrafts turned financially pathetic. The condition was pathetic here. People were robbed of their jobs. People were robbed of their employment. The farmers suffered due to zamindari system. Farmers were being managed by zamindars. Zamindars were another lot who looted the farmers. They hardly had any soft corner for the farmers. Farmers had to work day and night. They had to toil in the farmlands. But whatever wealth was there, earning was there, that was all being taken away by the zamindars. And the British were supporting zamindars and not the farmers. The British were managing farming here with the help of zamindars, and they were collecting the taxes. They were after the money. The farmers suffered due to the zamindari system. Even the talukdar system which was there, taluk-wise officers to look after, that too had got almost sidelined by the British. Land tax collection rights of talukdars were withdrawn because the zamindars looked after the British very well. Zamindars used to make lot of money and give a part of that to the British. The British used to be happy with that. No pains, you get money. Every year you get money. And they had to pay in advance. Zamindars had to pay money in advance, taxes in advance, and get clearance for the next 1 year. So zamindari system proved to be the best system for the British. The British need not go from village to village. Zamindars manage and make money. They too become strong, wealthy, and the British will be looked after very well. So both were to get benefited by the system. Land tax collection rights were withdrawn from the talukdars. Inam lands were taken back by the British. Earlier, during the Vijayanagara Empire, or Chalukyas, Cholas, Pallavas, or the kings and Nawabs who ruled India for centuries together, they had given inam lands to temples, inam lands to masjids, inam lands to people who really strived in their military orders, who fought in wars, who sacrificed themselves for the kingdom. They were being given inams. You know, inams are prizes. You give gifts to them. Say, you have done a very good job for your kingdom, take it away. They will be given an acre, 2 acres, 3 acres or 5 acres of land as a gift. Or sometimes lands were being given away and they were being told that a certain amount of tax has to be paid every year, but the land is theirs now, it is given away, it goes to their possession. Most of the temples in South India as well as the north, you find lot of inam lands. You see, you ask them, how did you get these lands? Who gave the lands? They say these came as inams. Some had given lot of push to culture, Indian culture. Then too, these temples used to get encouraged a lot by way of inam lands. These inam lands were taken back now. The British thought, the zamindars thought, why should we leave these inam zamins, lands? Let us take them back and give it to those who would fill the British treasury well. Farmers felt denigrated and insulted. Farmers had to be given all the encouragement. It went vice versa. No one cared for them. No one turned towards them. So farmers suffered and they felt denigrated, as if they were demoted. There was no consideration for them. So they felt denigrated and insulted. So the farmers were very angry against the British. Coming to the military reasons. The condition of the Indian soldiers in the British army was pathetic. Now, those who were serving in the British army, see, even the salaries were different. British soldiers used to get a different salary. Indian soldiers had a different salary. There was a lot of difference between the two. The soldiers started noting these down now. It was pathetic. Their service rules were pathetic. They did not have the status, salary and promotion prospects as of the British soldiers. When it came to promotion, who got promoted? The British soldiers get promoted. Indian soldiers had to be ordinary soldiers till their retirement. They have to die as ordinary soldiers. The Indian soldiers were not ready to work overseas. The British, they had interests even in lands in Africa, in the Vietnam region, Thailand. Wherever they went, they wanted to build up territory under their control. So they had to fight. They had to battle it out. They needed soldiers, they needed army. And Indians were asked to go overseas to help the British in winning battles. But the religious beliefs what we had did not permit the Indian soldiers to cross seas. Going and crossing a sea was inhibited, prohibited by religious sanctions. Religion did not permit. So the Indian soldiers used to say, oh, we have to go to Africa. No, we won't go. We have to cross the sea. We are not ready for that. The British had a good excuse now to tell why Indians are not getting promoted. Why should we promote them? They are not ready to fight overseas. Now you see, all these are different reasons what made the Indians angry towards the British rule. It was all boiling within. Almost all over India, everyone had some anger or some reason to hate the British. Now all what it needed was a spark for this anger to explode. You need a spark. You need a petty reason for the entire problem to explode and result in a huge battle-like situation against the British. Immediate cause. What was the immediate cause? The British had started distributing Royal Enfield guns. Royal Enfield guns to the soldiers in the army. They were new guns with a better technology. The guns had been manufactured and these guns were getting distributed among the soldiers. And the bullets that were being used in these guns, a rumor spread that they were smeared with the fat of cows and pigs. The bullets which were being used in the Royal Enfield guns had a smear of the fat of pigs and cows around them. And before you load the gun, you had to bite and chip off the bullet, a portion of the bullet you have to chip off with your teeth, and then you have to load. It had to be done. With the gun in the hand, you cannot take any other tool to cut it out, to remove that smear, the outer cover. It had to be done with the teeth. You have to do it with the teeth. And Hindus said, we cannot do it because you have smeared the bullets with cow's fat. Cow was a sacred animal for the Hindus, so they refused to bite off a chip of the bullet. And the Muslim soldiers who were in the army, they were in big numbers, they said, you have smeared the fat of pigs. Our religion doesn't permit us to chew. We can't take the bullet and chew off, slice off that outer cover. So both the Hindus and the British, they refused to use those guns and the bullets. The British got angry because now the entire infrastructure they wanted to build up was failing. The soldiers were denying, they were refusing to follow the orders of the higher-ups. The British started providing Royal Enfield guns to their soldiers. A rumor spread that the bullets of these guns were smeared with the fat of pigs and cows. The cow was a sacred animal for Hindus. Cow was sacred for Hindus. And the pig was prohibited for Muslims. This became the immediate cause of the mutiny. When the soldiers refused, the British officers forced them to do that job. It's an order from the higher-ups. The soldiers refused. It built up a battle-like situation in the army. So that was the commencement of the first war of independence.